These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
It's a scoop session on this Tuesday. Minnesota sports with Mackey and Judd. He is Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. As the world awaits, the fate is in the hands of two different parties. Is it going to be Glen Taylor or Alex and Marc, who own the Timberwolves after today? So, Dukes, you guys, you sent some cameras down. We had like the A-Rod and Lori in a suit getting out of their respective limo SUVs. 5 Eyewitness News was capturing the walk into the hearing yesterday. So set the scene for us yesterday, downtown Minneapolis. By the way, all of them then showed up fully dapper for Wolves Hornets last. It was a long day for those guys. Nobody flinching, nobody blinking.
And of course, Glen Taylor on one side of the court, Alex and Marc on the other side of the court. It's a day of great divide, Phil, right? Nobody can debate that. A day of great divide, especially in a boardroom in a downtown Minneapolis law office. So deliberation, however you want to term it, continues. You have Marc Lore, Alex Rodriguez, their attorneys, Glen Taylor, his representation, either side of a really long table. Then you have the 3 arbitrators at the head of the table. One hired by Glen Taylor, one hired by Marc and Alex, then a neutral arbitrator, Thomas Fraser. His dad is the former mayor of Minneapolis, Don. He was a former Hennepin County district judge. It essentially comes down to him. Now, is it possible one of the arbitrators hired by Glen or Marc and Alex, goes against that side? I suppose. But we're looking at, in the end,
Wouldn't that be the ultimate
2-1 vote. And it will continue throughout this week. Then, in all likelihood, a decision will be made at some point. Like, it could be early December. It could be mid-December. It could be before Thanksgiving. When there's this much money at stake, I had a nice conversation with Joseph Daly, a professor at William Mitchell Hamlin Law. He writes arbitration decisions. So he does this for a living, also teaches about this. He's an expert when it comes to arbitration. He made the point with me late last week. Hey, when there's this much money at stake, oftentimes the decision comes sooner rather than later. By the way, these arbitrators are being paid north of $25,000 a day. What a freaking gig. The 2 sides, the Glen Taylor side, the Alex Rodriguez, Marc Lore side, both sides are spending in the neighborhood of $20-something million just to get through arbitration.
Wow.
It is ridiculous the amount of money being spent, attorney fees, than paying the 3 arbitrators.
What's catering like then? I mean, lunch must be
Jimmy John's.
phenomenal.
They cut it at that point. At that point, it's just
we can't afford. We
something fast
it's just
casual,
some
guys.
turkey toms. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way: there's a Brugger's Bagels.
Yeah,
there's a Brugger's Bagels right across the street. And hey, I'm a big Brugger's Bagels fan, but I don't think they're having Brugger's Bagels.
Oh my God!
Turkey sandwiches.
They're missing
bagel,
out, quite frankly.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they are, because I'm a huge Brugger's Bagels fan. But yeah, I don't think it's quite Brugger. So, what's interesting to me is my understanding from talking to multiple sources is there is a lot of stuff that is admissible, like Alex Rodriguez's baseball past, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about everything he's dealt with in the past, right? And the Glen Taylor side will try to paint Alex as a villain, right? That he's done a lot of bad things in the past. The Marc Lore and Alex Rodriguez side will certainly paint a picture that, hey, Glen has waffled for a really long time. Plus, there's some questionable stuff in Glen's, going back a number of years. But to me, it still comes down to, and I firmly believe this, talking to a number of people who know Thomas Fraser, that he's as clean as it gets, that he is just going to interpret the contract. This is a contractual dispute. How is the language written in this 47-page contract? Glen's history, A-Rod's history doesn't really matter. But this is essentially a court case. It's not a court case, right? Like, these are arbitrators, not judges technically, but it's got the feel very much of a court case.
Yeah, and I saw there was a pretty big play-by-play of what you're talking about today in Star Tribune as well, Dukes. And it sounds like it's three former judges, though. So, like, it's people. And so, like, hearsay is permissible because they basically think that that those people are able to process it and not be biased like a jury would be. What I found to be most intriguing, though, is, and we've sort of bandied this about, but can the decision be appealed like to a court, or could it go to court? And it seems like the answer is almost certainly no. Now, to be clear, if Marc and Alex win, the Board of Governors does get the final say as far as the ownership of the team, but it sounds like the arbitration is pretty much binding, which is good news in the sense that at least that will end that portion. And it won't be, unless something egregious takes place, it won't end up in front of then like a jury trial because somebody didn't like the end result of the arbitration.
Accurate. Arbitration is binding. That decision is final. What can get interesting is, you laid it out, Judd. So the Wolves won't vote. So it's 29 governors. A governor for an NBA team is essentially the majority owner. So James Dolan is the governor of the New York Knicks. Go up and down the list, right? Jerry Reinsdorf is the governor of the Chicago Bulls. Glen Taylor is the governor of the Timberwolves. That if Marc and Alex win arbitration, and I'll continue to say this, you talk to enough people, they have a rock solid case. They absolutely can win arbitration. The key then is, and they've been working really hard behind the scenes for a number of months to get those 23 votes. That is a significant number. Can they get those 23 votes? Now, I'll continue to say, I bring that up, and I've brought that up for a while, but the blowback I've been getting, I'm absorbing it. Bobby Marks, others telling me, hey, Adam Silver for years has been saying this is a legal matter. If it's 2-1 in favor of Marc and Alex, why should then the NBA turn their back on that? If Adam Silver has been saying this for a really long time, why would the NBA then change its mind? I'll also make one other point, something I've thought about. So Michael Bloomberg, big part of this. Now, I don't think Michael has interest in actually becoming majority owner. This is a rock solid investment for Bloomberg, but he certainly has his fingerprints on this. He is what, Phil? The 8th richest man on the planet, 9th, somewhere in that ballpark, one of the richest men on the planet. Think about the attorneys he has working for him, how good they are. And if anything, they are uber conservative. To me, the way you would get fired as a Michael Bloomberg attorney is if you give him bad information, then he loses money, right? So to me, you're always going to side on being uber conservative. The fact that we've gotten to this point leads me to think that Bloomberg's attorneys have said, hey, Marc and Alex have a rock solid case. And so I've just thought about that, the Bloomberg influence, the people Bloomberg has in his circle, that we've gotten to this point.
I have so many questions off this. Namely, what is the point? Just I have an actual question, but I'm so confused by you've got 3 judges basically, right? And you've got one that is scouted and paid by each party, which just seems like, okay, it's an extension of whatever. You're not going to hire someone that thinks you're in the legal gray area, right? You would think. So why not just have one third-party neutral person?
Because I think it's the deliberation that takes place after the fact. So the two sides will argue, in all likelihood, throughout the week. Then the 3 arbitrators will get together again on Monday and have some back and forth. And I think the idea is to create some dialogue in that respect. But I've tried to get clarity on that because I'm with you, Phil. What's the point? Why spend all that money on the biased arbitrator? Just hire the neutral arbitrator. What's the point in having slights and blats?
Although it would be, I feel like, a very Glen Taylor way to go out if his paid, hired arbitrator turned
Kathleen
on him
Blatz.
at the last minute, right?
I don't think so, but
thumbs
sure.
down. Be a very WWE-like thing. And then I want to float something by you and see if you've heard anything different or updated. Several months back, I had heard if Glenn wins this process, that he is not likely to immediately turn around and put the team up for sale. That now, of course, like that could change, and that's where I would defer to you. You are more plugged in than I am on a regular basis here. But I had heard that Becky is willing, as Glenn ages out and, God forbid, potentially passes away at some point, right? He's in his 80s or late 80s, that Becky would continue to control ownership, and Ethan Casson, Ryan Tanke, like the leadership structure that is in place right now, would continue to move forward and run the Timberwolves. What are you hearing? If Glenn wins this thing, what do you think happens? Does he just continue to own the team and push forward, or does he try to turn around and sell it for $3 billion to somebody else?
I will affirm everything that you just laid out. Glenn is 83, by the way, so not quite late 80s yet, but we've laid out some of the health issues, including a really bad back. And hey, remember when Minnesota State Mankato, they win the national championship, men's hoops, women's hoops. He's there at the Taylor Center. He needed help, getting off the podium, right? His back was acting up. Like, he's been dealing with some stuff going back years, right? So you always wonder, but not quite late 80s, 83. But yes, everything, Phil, you just laid out. I would just offer up, though, Glenn is fully capable of changing his mind.
Yeah.
Right? And so could that happen? But yes, in this immediate moment, Becky Taylor, yes. Ryan Tanke, Ethan Casson, yes. Everything you said, I will say, yes, I've heard the same thing.
I think if there's a lesson to be learned from this, and the NBA is a well-run league. I mean, they do a lot right, okay? But I think if there's one thing to be learned from this, it is this idea of buying the team slowly but surely should never be allowed. I mean, I don't know if other sports allow it. If they do, they should come up with laws or bylaws. But the whole ridiculousness, I mean, if you think about this just from, like, let's say things worked out fine. But if you think about this, Dukes, from a perspective of this, which is these teams, NBA football for sure, are constantly going up, right? Like, it's $1 billion today, it's $2 billion tomorrow. We should have seen some of this coming, which is you can't have this big of lag time to make payments and then at the end say, oh God, I'm getting this for $1.5 billion and it's worth $3 billion now. So I think that's a lesson for everyone in sports, but basketball in particular. If they ever allow this again, they are absolutely crazy.
Well, I mean, look at the Boston Celtics situation right now, Judd. Now, the end price for the Celtics sale will end up being what, $5 billion? $6 billion, perhaps?
Yeah, should be.
But there is at least one line of thinking that the Celtics may follow a comparable path. I'm with you, though. Hey, what about these, Dial or, you name the financial, what would you call it? One of these,
like the private equity firms.
Yeah, exactly. Private equity firm. Like, should that be allowed? Right. And so, yeah, I mean, that opens up Pandora's box. We can have a lot of back and forth on that. But immediately, no, there's no sense that the NBA is going to put the kibosh on, a tiered sale process, because I'm telling you, the word is the Celtics may follow something similar.
Interesting, man. I mean, the more expensive these franchises, it feels like the value of NBA franchises is going up much faster than the 6 to 8% return on most people's long-term investments. So, like, fewer and fewer people are able to afford an NBA team like 10 or 20 years ago. So you have to put together groups and make it happen that way. On the court, by the way, I know it was the Hornets last night, and it's not exactly the most impressive win of the season, but Boy, it's pretty rare that Chris Finch trusts 5-6 minutes of garbage time to take place where you actually put in the Dillinghams. There's Jade McDaniels was brutal in the first half. Mike Conley gives him a pep talk. He snaps out of it in the third quarter. But I will say the biggest thing that stands out to me so far, Dukes, is the chemistry between Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid. The more you can give those guys minutes, the more I think you can get Anthony Edwards to mix in with some of those guys too. They have 3 dudes off the bench that are all phenomenal to start the season.
I am with you now. Okay, not the most impressive win of the year. I guess that would be what? Sacramento.
I mean, the Denver comeback,
right? But yes, or the Denver comeback, sure. But it's the best performance of the year when you outscore the opponent by 20-something points from the 3-point line. To me, it was their best defensive performance. They've not offered a whole lot of resistance in the paint so far. Well, they did last night. Now it helps that Nick Richards, Mark Williams did not play for Charlotte. Charlotte started Taj Gibson at center. But nonetheless, it was their best effort of the year, coming off, to me, their worst effort of the year Saturday in San Antonio. So, yes, there's enough to build on. I freaking love Dante DiVincenzo. I would do everything in my power to ensure that he's playing a ton of minutes. Now, I get it. Small sample size. Maybe he's not making shots at the clip you would expect him to make shots at, but that will come. In fact, he told us at shoot-around on Monday, hey, look at my start last year in New York. The numbers will even themselves out. But as a playmaker, just knowing what the heck to do, he's got that it factor. I love DiVincenzo. So I'm all about giving DiVincenzo a ton of minutes. They're still trying to figure out who is that 9th man, getting to that 9-man rotation. And so that's still a work in progress. But you look across the league, how many teams right now are 3-3, 4-3, 3-4? It's about 20-something teams that are all in the same boat. It takes a good 15 to 20 games to really figure things out.
And I think there's no question that Finch does not trust a lot of the young guys, but I will say
right now he doesn't. No.
On the ninth man, I think that is largely this too. As Finch talked about post game, the bench with the 3 guys off the bench was magnificent last night, but the starters still do not have the chemistry that he wants. And you could sort of see it. It sort of comes and goes at times. So I think the 9th man problem is more so predicated on the fact that he's trying to get the starters and he's trying to get the rotation of the 8 guys to where he's comfortable before he unleashes the 9th guy. Now, I will say when Dillingham checked in with a 28-point lead to a basically standing ovation last night, and you watched him, there's some offense there. But, I mean, the defensive concern is going to be, for a while, very real. But I think the 9th man thing is more the starters and the fact that they don't feel super comfortable yet with what that looks like. And Mike Conley played well last night. But when he went to the bench, they also had a big wrap around his ankle and stuff. The dude's just old.
He's too old.
He's too old.
Play him 38 minutes.
I love the guy. I mean, the guy's great. He's pro.
Too old.
But I guess my question is the starting lineup that we're currently seeing, is that the set lineup, or could we see some guys emerge, perhaps maybe to move into that role? Because Na is playing absolutely fantastic. 1 of 6 last night. Plus 22, and played really, really well, I thought.
Oh, yeah. Na's been fantastic in a contract year. A reminder that preseason doesn't mean a whole lot because Na did not play well in the preseason. I mean, could we see a change at some point? I suppose, but nothing immediately, Judd. Chris loves Nas off the bench. He knows Dante's comfortable off the bench. He knows Na is comfortable off the bench. So I don't foresee any changes with the starting lineup anytime soon. On Conley, I'll tell you what, I was surprised he played on Saturday, second game of a back-to-back. Not that there was any set plan in the preseason, okay, we play 10 back-to-backs. Mike is going to miss all 10 of those games, but he is going to inevitably miss some of those back-to-backs, like not play 2 straight nights, just looking at the schedule. Maybe they sit him the first night or the second night. He's not going to play 80 games or 79 games. He is going to miss some games. I worry about the wrist. The fact that he's brought it up multiple times, even though he says it's fine, but alluding to surgery somewhere down the road at 37, that worries me. The other guy that needs to show us more, now he did in the second half last night, Jaden McDaniels. The contract extension has kicked in.
Yeah.
He is making a ton of money. He now needs to live up to that contract. 5 years, $137 million. It's on Jaden. I've always said there's a lot more to his offensive game. He'll be given some different opportunities. Time to show us that you're worthy of that enormous contract extension.
Yeah, amen. Hey, we'll get to some Viking stuff here and the rest of Doogie's scoop bag in a moment. We are giving away tickets to the Minnesota-Atlanta game coming up in December. We're giving away 3 pairs of tickets in section 216 through the Score North app. All you have to do is open the Score North app, go to Listener Rewards, and you can enter to win daily between now and Friday, November 15th. We will pick a winner, or I guess winners, on the week of November 18th. So again, open up that Score North app, Listener Rewards, and you can enter for your chance to win Minnesota-Atlanta tickets. That's a big showdown. Big showdown between a couple of quarterbacks.
I was going to say, what teams?
Minnesota and Atlanta. Just trying to avoid any litigious activity from the National Football League.
This is my favorite part.
Thing.
Don't forget, in February, there's the Vikings could be playing in the big game.
It's Minnesota could be playing in the big game.
Yeah, you can't say big game. Yeah, but it has
I can't
to
say
be
big game,
Minnesota.
right? Okay, don't forget.
Yeah,
a team that wears
big game,
purple
I'm
could be
pretty sure.
playing in the big game. So get your hors d'oeuvres out. Get your nachos ready.
There's also a company with purple and gold vans that drive around looking to fix things at your home. What's that company called, Judd?
And we can talk about them because that
Big
is
Game Solutions.
my good friend Cody Finch and the folks at Finch Home Solutions who want to take your holiday lighting, get this, to a new level with gemstone exterior lighting, permanent invisible soffit that can display any color for any occasion. That's right. Perhaps purple for game day, huh? For the Minnesota team that wears purple. And we aren't talking about temporary lighting here. We're talking about permanent gemstone by Finch, a high-quality exterior lighting system that is usable any time of year, including the holidays. I won't even say a particular holiday because I don't want to get sued by Santa Claus. So for the holidays, just give Finch a call, 612-357-2604 or finchhomesolutions.com, finchhomesolutions.com. For any project around the house, any electrical needs, Finch can take care of it for you.
All right, Dukes, what's left in your scoop bag? Let's start with some Minnesota football, purple and gold, if you will.
I like it. So the Minnesota purple and gold team will bring in some kickers today for tryouts. I know one for sure is John Parker Romo. Zane Gonzalez is not one of the guys in town, former Arizona kicker. I mean, it's not a great list of guys available. And I'm not even sure in this moment if the Vikings, the purple and gold team in town.
No, you can say it now. We're good now.
I know. Have full clarity on Will Reichard's quad injury, but they are operating as if he is going to miss time. They need to be ready to pull the trigger in the event he can't go. And so that's the way they are operating. Definitely need to bring in a new long snapper. They are not solving that issue internally. Andrew DePaula undergoing a procedure on his hand. So he is going to miss multiple weeks. So we're looking at the potential of a new long snapper and a new kicker heading into Sunday at Jacksonville. Blake Cashman, it absolutely has gone on longer than anyone anticipated. And so there is frustration. There's no doubt about that. I'm told week to week. So it's possible he is back this week, but going back to October 7th, October 8th, if I would have told you, or heck, if I had told the Vikings, hey, Blake is not going to be back on November 3rd for the Colts game, they would have said, you are nuts. And so there's fluidity to just about every injury situation, but certainly in the Cashman situation, he didn't think it would last this long.
Turf toe is bad
I
too.
know.
Like it sounds like, it's just turf toe. It's like it is a painful.
Trust me,
thing.
he's a tough. Trust me.
Yeah.
Talk to Mike Grant going back at Eden Prairie. He wasn't the most talented player on those Eden Prairie Eagles teams, right? But
I think he's soft.
I think he's tough as hell. I think he's tough as nails. No.
There's a toughness there that has carried Blake this far. Trust me, if Blake could be out there, he would be out there. So but it's frustrating. There's no doubt.
The good news, Dukes, is and this was not really because of Blake being absent, but on Sunday, I believe it was 24 to 26 defensive snaps for Dallas Turner, who gets back on the field and has a nice game, proving again that if they create a role for him, I'm not saying he won't make some mistakes. I'm sure he does, but he also I thought showed a lot on Sunday, and his speed off the edge when used is definitely a weapon. That had to be good news for all of the fearful, oh my God, it's Lewis Scene 2.0, which it in no way, shape, or form is.
Oh God, did anybody suggest that? I sure hope not.
Yeah, there was some first round. Another
there's some dark corners of Vikings Twitter, Dukes. There's some dark corners.
It's not Dallas Turner's good.
There's dark corners of everything on Twitter. There's no denying that, especially here on election day and leading up to the election. But on Dallas, 26 defensive snaps. Yeah, and I mean, from what I could tell, he made a presence, right? Like you noticed him. You saw 15 around the quarterback, especially on that last Colts drive where the Vikings had multiple sacks. You saw 15 in the neighborhood. And so he's fully capable. I anticipate that being the role moving forward. We're not going backwards. Lions game, Rams game, 4 defensive snaps, 3 defensive snaps. We're going to be closer to that 20-something number the rest of the season.
Yeah. Cam Robinson was largely very good at left tackle, and they still have options too if they want to bring Dalton Reisner in. But I guess it kind of feels like state of the offensive line calmer than when the ACL, MCL thing came out with Christian Darrisaw.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, Brian O'Neill, Kevin O'Connell went out of his way on Monday. It wasn't a Brian O'Neill question, but he turned the corner, gushing about how good Brian O'Neill has been at right tackle. I actually thought, even though it's the one play that stands out, because it looks like Bradbury stepped on Ingram's foot. And so I don't know if that's Bradbury's fault, Ingram's fault, but Bradbury gets trucked over, right? The fumble that turns into the Colts touchdown. But like overall, and I saw the PFF grade, Bradbury graded out really well. Ingram graded out really well. Brandell, maybe not so much, but he's had plenty of good moments. So yeah, I feel okay about that offensive line. Phil, I'll continue to say, like, are you sure the Vikings are not the second best team in the NFC? Like, who is the second best team in the NFC? Okay, I get it. Detroit, clear cut, number 1. But who is the second best team in the NFC? I'm just saying I can make a compelling case. It is the Vikings.
I think it is. I think right now it is. I mean, the Lions, again, the Chiefs last night, and they're 8-0, but every game for that team is just a grind until the very end to close somebody out or beat someone late. And there's definitely an art and a science to doing that. And Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, I mean, it's very much like when Tom Brady in his prime and Bill Belichick would have a team close, like, yeah, they're just going to find a way. So that I'm not to discredit that, but the Lions
there's also luck though, right? Todd Bowles not going for 2
right
at the end of regulation.
What are we doing there, by the way?
Winning the coin toss. I'm with you. Go for the win. Absolutely go for the win.
You're the Buccaneer. Like, what do you, you're Todd Bowles. You're the Buccaneers. Like, what are you playing defensively for in that spot? And then Baker Mayfield, the look on his face when they
the ball down, anticipating that Kansas City maybe is a bit tired. Like, just get to the line, run a play, go for the win.
I think an offensive guy does, but Bowles is not. He's a defensive guy, and he probably trusted his defense, and he thought, Mahomes has hobbled a little bit. I'll just roll the dice. And, you got walked off the field. It's unfortunate for them.
Yeah. Dukes, what else is left in your scoop bag before we bid you farewell?
Vikings Director of College Scouting Mike Sholotin was at the Texas A&M South Carolina game. So when looking at that Aggies roster, that Gamecocks roster, lots of intriguing interior defensive linemen. And so I know by the time this posts, it'll almost be past the NFL trade deadline of 3:00 Central. But the Vikings continue to make all sorts of calls, trying to upgrade the interior of their defensive line and looking at a cornerback. I've not heard Marshawn Lattimore's steam in this moment. I know he's out there. Maybe he does get moved. I just haven't heard the Vikings attached to Lattimore. Gophers men's basketball opens the season tomorrow. Frank Mitchell did at least escape serious injury with the shoulder, but he's expected to miss at least a little bit of time starting center. But hey, when thinking about that Gophers non-conference schedule, they really won't be challenged until late November, that Thanksgiving weekend event at Disney when they'll play Wichita State, then either Florida or Wake Forest. So there is hope that Mitchell absolutely can be back by then.
Darren Doogie Wolfson.
One other note, Derek Falvey. You've got Zoll, Adler, Daniel Adler, Jeremy Zoll, assistant GMs, and Sean Johnson, who runs the Twins draft. That foursome is in San Antonio right now at the GM meetings.
All righty. They're just hanging out down there by the Riverwalk, maybe catching a Wemby performance. Maybe not.
How do I find a couple dollars on the street to get a free agent since there's no $10 million even coming on the payroll? So Good luck to them.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Speaking of that, still no sense. I think I've brought this up, but I'll hammer it home now. No sense A-Rod, Laurie have interest in buying the Twins.
Okay. That would be, what if they should buy every team in town?
I agree.
That's what they should do. Even just buy the Vikings from the Wilfs, just leverage that Bloomberg money. Just Marc and Alex. Monopoly. All right, Dukes. See you, buddy.
See you, Doogie.
Feel better. We'll see Doogie on Thursday for a little reckless speculation Thursday here. Minnesota Sports with Mackey and Judd.
Yeah, I think my